What's up, vape fam? Sorteal here, and welcome to the Vaporworks lab. Today we have a new RDA to take a look at. It comes from Advken, and it's designed by an individual that goes by the name of Fatriio. It is the Artha Gen 2 RDA. Now, this is the first Advken product I think I've ever actually tried. I do kind of remember, I think they had an RDA called the Notch back in the day, kind of old school 4-post design, and also an RTA that I remember called the Mantra, but I never got to try any of those. I've never tried the original Artha, so this is all new to me. So what we're going to do, we will dive on over, show you all the ins and outs to this. We'll break it apart, build it, wick it, juice it, come back up, vape on it. Then we're going to stick it on the Vert 2 mechanical mod, see how it does there. And I'll tell you guys what I think. So let's go ahead and dive on over. All right, this is the package that your Artha Gen 2 RDA from Advken, designed by Fatriio, comes in. It is black and pink. This thing is absolutely gorgeous. This right here, this is the Artha logo, not the Advken logo. Open this up. This kind of a screw off top. Get a little card. Basically just tells you everything that's in the package. It's 24mm diameter RDA, has a 2.5mm diameter AFC ring suggested for single coil builds, 3mm diameter AFC ring suggested for dual coil builds, 24 karat gold plated positive posts, diamond patterned top cap. It says compatible with bottom feed box mods, but it does not come with a squonk pin, so I don't know what happened there. Then the rest of it's just everything that comes in the package. And then here is your RDA. Very kind of reminiscent to an RDA for vaping V1, just as far as kind of the airflow ring goes. But it's a little bit different than that. I really dig this drip tip up here on the top. It's very comfortable, very well made. Here on the bottom, you got Artha Gen 2 serial number, designed by Fatriio and Advken. Gold plated 510 pin. It is hybrid mechanical mod safe. You guys know me, I love seeing that. So to get to these AFC rings, very similar to an RDA for vaping V2, take your drip tip off. Little ring there on the top. Then you can pull off the AFC ring. Now, as far as the airflow with this goes, basically what it's doing, it's coming in through there, hitting this kind of indentation, getting channeled downwards, and then it's going in extremely low on the deck. So it's almost kind of an undercoil-like flavor to this. Show you a little bit more about this once we get it on the Gower 21 and install some coils. But I will say, it sort of solves the condensation problem. If you remember from an RDA for vaping V1, you would just get an absolute ton of liquid all around the RDA, because essentially after you take a pull, you would get vapor that would kind of leak back out of the airflow, and then it would condense underneath that AFC ring, kind of seep out the top and bottom. This doesn't suffer from that quite as much. You do get a little bit of it, but I think really what's going on here is as it comes in, getting channeled down, then after you've taken a pull, it really doesn't come back up out of your airflow here quite as much, because that airflow is so low. Most of the kind of after vapor just escapes through the top. Like I said, you do get a little coming out of here, but it's not much. And most of that kind of condensed vapor, condensation from the vapor, gets trapped in this cutout and just kind of drains back down to this airflow opening. You do get a teeny bit around the rest of the RDA, but it's nothing like an RDA for vaping V1. You can get a little bit of seepage, normally around the bottom, but it is very, very little. All right, put this all back together. Get your other AFC ring. These are 2.5mm openings, and it says suggested for single coil builds, and it does work extremely good for that, especially if you want to stick a 3.5mm single coil in there. But it's also good for dual coil if you want a little bit tighter of a pull. Also get bag of spares. Just has O-rings and grub screws, no squonk pin whatsoever in this package. So I don't really know why they have it being compatible with bottom feed box mods, because you don't get a squonk pin, which is a big bummer. Set this off to the side here. Then we will grab the Gower 21. Slap this on here. And let's take a look at the deck. Also, right there, you get the Artha logo. And the paint job on this is just absolutely amazing. Comes in 3 different colors. There's a stainless steel version, which is pretty much the only straight color. Then there's this pink and black. And there's another one that's kind of a greenish, almost a darker seafoam green kind of color. I like it, but definitely think the pink and black and the stainless steel are the best color options. But, you know, it's always subjective. Pop this off. Here on the inside, your chamber is very compressed, which is always good to see. As you can see, you got your opening there. And what's going on, let's look at just how far down this airflow goes. So, as you can see, your airflow is really low. It's actually going to shoot underneath your coil. Even if you say cut your leg leads about 4 millimeters, slammed them to the deck, and then pulled your coil up with a coiling rod, all that airflow is still going to be kind of under coil. Where it's so compressed, the airflow just kind of goes immediately in and then back up. So you're basically getting airflow all around the coil, which makes this have absolutely amazing flavor. But it is kind of a bottom airflow type of flavor, if you know what I mean by that. All right, so we got our grub screws already backed out. These are flathead screws. You got gold-plated positive post there. Just a basic 4-post deck design that we've seen on countless RDAs, from the Dead Rabbit to the Drop Dead to the Tallow X. Just a ton of different RDAs. But if it's not broke, don't fix it. And this design works extremely well. Coils we're going to use are some Watofo 0.22 aliens. So they should come out to about 0.11. A lot of times they come out to just 0.1, which is fine. And we're going to cut these at 4.5 millimeters. So very short leg leads. You could go all the way down to 4. And like I said, just slam it to the deck. Tighten your screws down, and then take a coiling rod and forcibly pick it up so it's not touching the deck, and it would work just fine. You'd actually probably get extremely good flavor that way. All right, like I said, we got grub screws backed out pretty good. Let's go ahead and drop these coils in here. Now with 5-wrap coils, it kind of pinches the legs inward some. If you have 4-wrap coils, it's not anywhere near as bad. They drop in pretty easy. But 5-wrap, you got to kind of pinch them a little bit. There we go. So very low. We will tighten these down and then kind of pick it up with a coiling rod, like I said before. Again, you might want to just kind of pinch them inwards a little bit if you've got 5-wrap coils, just because the posts are so close together. Now you're going to want them pretty close to each other there in the middle. It's looking fairly good. It did kind of jank this coil leg up over here where it's so pinched inwards, if you can see that. It's unfortunate. I'm actually going to pick this one up a little more. Make sure we're not touching. You don't have much clearance at all, but it doesn't look like we're touching. Might bring this in just a hair. I think that's pretty good. Go ahead. Coming out to 0.06. go ahead, put our top cap on. Make sure we don't get a short. No, we're good. All right. So came out to 0.1 on the money. Cotton that we're going to use for this is some Cloud 9. This container got a little beat up on the way to me, but it'll work just fine. All right, you don't need much wick at all with this, so basically just kind of take your scissors to the edge of the deck and cut, and you'll be good. And I'm not going to thin it out too much. I really just kind of want to make sure all the fibers are going in the same direction, which with Cloud 9 sometimes that's not always the case, so kind of why I do this. Then we'll just kind of Mike Bapes flip cotton in there. And bam, there you go. Quick and easy. No problem whatsoever to wick this. All right, liquid that we're going to use is some delicious strawberry swirl. This stuff is absolutely delicious. Look at those coils. They came out a gorgeous shade of blue. Think that'll work for us. Let's go ahead, stick our top cap back on here. Check inside there. Not touching, that's good. Drip a little more. All right, we are good. There we go, looking good. Let's jump back up top. We'll vape on it on the Gower 21 for a minute. Then we're going to swap it over to this right here, the Vert 2. Love this mechanical mod, and this RDA looks pretty damn good on it. All right, let's jump back up top. All right, back up top with the Artha Gen 2 from Advken. Got our delicious strawberry swirl. I'm going to drip a little bit more. Now with this, you really only have two airflow options. You've got the 3mm holes and the 2.5mm holes. The difference between the two is actually a little more than I honestly would have assumed. But if you're doing dual coil around 0.1, 0.11, maybe lower, you definitely want the 3mm. But if you like a slightly tighter pull, 2.5mm AFC rings work extremely well. I do wish there had been more options. Maybe a single hole 3mm airflow opening. If you wanted to do single coil, maybe a little bit higher. Maybe you wanted to do a 0.3 single coil and you didn't want so much airflow. There's really no option to cut that down any further, but what they do offer works really well. If you're going to do single coil, I recommend a 3.5mm ID coil. It seems to work the best. 3mm coils work great. 2.5, to me at least, is a little bit too airy with the AFC ring options that you have. All right, so 0.1, let's start out at 90 watts. Here we go. Flavor off this is absolutely spectacular, where that chamber is just so compressed, and if you're using 3mm ID coils, all that space is pretty much taken up. So you're getting nothing but the vapor pretty much immediately. The airflow that's coming in is already kind of restrictive, so that just kind of ups that flavor even more. Now, if you want to build really low on this, I would recommend going with 2.5 millimeter ID coils, because that chamber is so compressed and the RDA is kind of so short that heat is going to kill that flavor with anything, you know, 0.09, 0.08, something around along those lines. The heat's just going to kill the flavor on it because of how compressed that chamber is. But if you use 2.5 millimeter ID coils, maybe lower, should be just fine. One thing with this, if you're going to use 3 millimeter ID coils and dual coil setup like this, it will get hot on you. So keep that in mind. I do really like this drip tip because it definitely kind of keeps you from burning your lips. It's kind of wide at the top, but it's still wide bore. So regardless of how hot this is, I've never really kind of burnt my lips on it, but touching it, I can definitely tell it gets hot pretty damn quick. Let's go ahead and crank this up even more. Let's just do 120. Drip a little bit more. If this works out good, we'll go ahead and swap it to the Vert 2. Also, the heat from the RDA does dissipate relatively quickly. Let's go ahead and swap the AFC ring here and try the 2.5 millimeter. Now we got the 2.5 millimeter airflow ring. Here we go. A little bit undersaturated. Give it another try. Here we go. With a build like this, the 2.5, the heat goes up just because there's really not enough airflow coming through to kind of tone that heat down. But it's very good. The flavor is absolutely amazing regardless of the AFC ring that you choose. If you're going to do a single coil, 2.5 millimeter, I think is probably the best bet, at least for my taste. But for now, I'm going to swap back to the 3 millimeter AFC ring, and then we're going to swap this over to the Vert 2. Here it is on the Vert 2. Looks absolutely gorgeous. Love the look of this. If you have the pink and black splatter Dreamer, it looks absolutely perfect with that mechanical model. It's one of the Dreamers that I don't have, but a friend of mine does have it, and we put this on there and it looks just absolutely gorgeous. All right, let's see how this does on a mechanical mod. Like I said, we've got the 3 millimeter opening AFC ring on here. Build's coming out to 0.1. Here we go. Flavor is amazing off of this RDA. Pretty damn good for vapor production as well. Give it one more pull. All right, so pros and cons. What do I like? What do I dislike about the Artha Gen 2 RDA from Advken and Fatriio? Biggest con to me is no squonk pin. I don't know why you list that it's compatible with the bottom feed box mod, and then you don't include a squonk pin. It's extremely odd. And it always sucks going through other RDAs to see if their squonk pins will fit this one. I hate doing that, so I just probably won't even attempt it. Another con, I wish they had more AFC rings. I would have loved to have seen a single hole 3 millimeter opening AFC ring for single coil builds, or a 3-hole 3 millimeter opening for dual coil if you wanted to do 3 millimeter ID coils but build lower, say 0.09, 0.08. As it is with the 2-hole opening, it just gets too hot if you build lower. The heat kind of kills that flavor somewhat. The RDA itself gets too hot, even for the drip tip to kind of protect you from, which with 0.1, it does a very, very good job of doing that. Everything else about this is pro, really. I love the way this thing looks. It's absolutely gorgeous. Flavor off this is spectacular. Some of the best that I've gotten out of a 24mm RDA. You do get a little bit of condensation around that AFC ring, little bit of seepage underneath, but nothing like an RDA for vaping V1. I really think channeling it downwards to that opening kind of solved that whole problem for them, at least to a degree. I'm just a big fan of this RDA overall. Think it has spectacular flavor. Couple of things I would have liked to have seen different about this, but overall, highly recommend this, especially if you're a flavor whore like me. All right, guys, that's it. Vape on, and I'll catch you all in the next one.